Hello, welcome to this special Beyond the South Stand episode. I'm joined today with Morgan. Hi, Morgan.
Hello.
And our special guest today is Conor. Conor from, I'll let you introduce yourself, Conor.
My name is Conor. I'm a Preston North End fan. I currently live in Hertfordshire, but I grew up in Preston, which is why I support them for my sins. Been a Preston fan for as long as I can remember. I remember when we were in third division, which is now League Two. Had some promotion pushes over David Moyes. Never been back that low since, and looking forward to talking on the podcast. It's been both a sort of mid-table kind of season, but actually there's been some really, really interesting moments of the season for Preston. So I think it's been one of those that shows you what being a championship fan's like, actually, because on the surface of it, we're sort of wandering around mid-table, but actually, if you think started off the season 3 games, 3 managers, which is never what you like to see. Also made headlines early on for the wrong reasons when Osmajic took being the Luis Suarez of the lower leagues he took the wrong message from that, and he got quite a substantial ban following the Blackburn game. There's been some highs. We won a 16-15 penalty shootout against Fulham, which
Wow.
That was particularly good for me, actually, as a Preston fan, given my own personal history, because I lived in Fulham for a long time, and I had a really good mate of mine who we used to go to games together back when we lived in Fulham. So it's kind of I don't know, it was a good. It's by no means a local derby for Preston and Fulham, but for me it felt like a personal derby. So that was good.
Of course. I mean, likewise with me and Luton, that's my sort of Jez derby, if you like, because obviously we're going to university in Luton. I do have an affinity to that club, so I know where you're coming from there. So usually I'm ultra prepared, Conor, and I would have sent you some questions, but not on this occasion. So we're gonna be winging it a little bit today, Morgan.
That's quite fun, actually. I think.
Yeah.
I spoke to our soon-to-be videographer, which sounds really pro. It's not, but I was saying, like, some of the the sort of Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes where you sort of have that little checkpoint and they sort of ad hoc it all the way to those checkpoints. I think it'd be quite fun today. So, Conor, you're an experiment.
Oh, thank you. Well, I always when I was at uni, I did a science degree. So if there's anyone who loves a bit of an experiment, a bit of a trial, something, see how it goes.
There we go.
Cool. I mean, I had an initial question. You talking about like sort of rivalry, like weirdly, obviously. Our Canaries' main rivals, Ipswich. I mean, we don't need to go into that, but we have some weird rivalries with Wolves. A bit of a weird one with Sunderland. Who is Preston's kind of like immediate rivals for those that aren't initiated, and also just those weird rivalries that sort of popped up from nowhere?
I don't know if there are that many weird rivalries, partly because if you go to that part of Lancashire, so there's a lot of when the Football League was sort of birthed back in the day, all the clubs were sort of from sort of that kind of area. Like Preston were on the fans of the Football League and the sort of North Midlands. So like the biggest rival probably I'd say is Blackpool. They compete in what is called the M55 Derby. It's we're probably the closest side to them because it's just for people who aren't like familiar with Lancashire geography. So Preston's kind of in the middle of the county. If you go down to the west coast on the motorway called the M55, which is what's called the M55 Derby, that's where you play Blackpool again, founder of the Football League. So they've been freshman thing. My mum's partner actually is a diehard Burnley fan. Like he's the whole and by curious coincidence, I was born in Burnley. I grew up in Preston. My family lived in Lango at the time, which one? I think when we moved to Preston, so I don't issue with it. But his face just fell because all he knew was I was born in Burnley, and I said, "Oh no, I'm a Preston fan." You could just see the colour drain from his eyes, but it's fine. It's so good. So yeah, those are kind of our main rivalries. We actually played Blackburn was our last league game actually, and we lost it, which is slightly unfortunate. As I said in the earlier derby. Those have been the most feisty derbies this year, I think, is definitely the 2 games against Blackburn. Like I say, Osmaic was how because it was seemed blatant that he bit an opposition player.
How long was he banned for after that?
It was 8 matches, I think.
So you bite someone, you get 8 matches, but if you spit at someone, you get 6. Okay.
Yeah, well, so Suarez, if you remember, compared to Suarez in the lower leagues, his first bite for when he was playing for Liverpool, he got 10, but he'd already had a bite. He'd got 8 the first time he did it in playing in the Netherlands. So
right.
I guess 8 seems to be the going rate for a bite these days.
He got a taste of blood.
He did get a taste of, well, oh my goodness. My mates and I were making so many puns about Osmaic after he did it. Like, just Preston Tack were hungry, took a real bite of it. But a forward line, they're not the most reputable of blokes. Winning penalty against Wickham yesterday was scored by Ched Evans.
Yeah.
I know. We were talking about former players. I was like, oh well, do we talk about him?
I mean, it's a podcast.
There were young fans out there. Do we want to go into that?
Probably not, but yeah. I think that well, I mean, by proxy, my again, our videographer, one of my best friends, his partner is she's from Preston. And their little girl has sort of I think they've got a little bit of Preston merchandise, but I think Ben's tried his best to sort of dye yellow and green, thankfully. I mean, no offence, but obviously, yeah.
Well, I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. Now, the 2-year-old hasn't expressed interest one way or another. Mia's my oldest one. She seemed to positively dislike football, and I never really made a push for it because I think so when I was growing up, for instance, my dad was a really, really keen brass band player, which is probably the most Lancastrian thing you can do.
Amazing.
But he was constantly trying to get me into brass music, and nothing made me resent it more than the fact he was constantly trying to push it on me.
Yeah.
So I've not tried to push it on her. But she's got no real interest in football, which is deeply disappointing. She expressed no interest in football whatsoever, so I didn't want to inflict Preston North End on a young person. I think the NSPCC would probably get in touch if that's what you did. So I didn't try and inflict that on her. Anyway, so she had no interest in football. No, this will mean something to Jez because Jez and I know each other particularly through Ben, who's my brother-in-law. Yeah. He's a really big Arsenal fan. Like, he absolutely loves Arsenal. Anyway, so Mia comes home from school one day and she's 6. So she was 5 when she said this. She goes, "I've decided I now support Tottenham."
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Because the 2 best friends at school are both Tottenham fans, and I think that's hilarious. Because, like I say, when I was growing up, obviously, I could go take a trip to Deepdale. There was also Preston was a part of my identity in a way. It's just not really for me. My parents are both from Bolton, so if I went by the same logic as if I tried to inflict Preston on Mia, I'd be like, it'd be a little bit hypocritical because I should have been a Bolton fan if that's the way I was going to do it based on where your parents are from.
I mean, she's let's be fair, like, she's chosen one of the most Norwich Premier League teams to support.
Oh, it's like she really has.
Because I've got a soft spot for Spurs because I lived in North London for a large part of my life, and I don't want to offend anyone from Highbury, but I've always preferred Spurs just because they felt a bit more real. So, but at the same token, they just do a Norwich and a Preston, don't they? They just seem to sort of
They remind me a bit of Preston as well because they do go up and down the league, but they give you moments of where you think something's going to happen, it's not going to. They're also quite a lot like Preston in a couple of other ways. Well, partly Tottenham's kit is explicitly based on Preston's kit, so they wear white shirts and blue shorts because that's what Preston wear.
Right.
Because it's easy to forget now, but Preston, they won the first 2 football leagues. They were at one point they were the first Invincibles. They were trendsetters in a way. But the other way they remind me is that they try and run themselves as more sustainable businesses more than their rivals. So, you know, like they'll try and keep the wage bill down. They'll try and sort of they won't take any sort of huge financial risks, and they try and sort of run it more as a business, which can be really frustrating as a fan.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know. Like the Preston have been in the. I was speaking to Jez about, and we'll probably go into a bit more detail, sort of memories of being a Preston fan and what it was like to sort of get promotion to the Championship, which was 10 years ago now. I think that maybe it's over the last few seasons, maybe that's where it can sometimes grind a bit when it sort of gets, you know, where you sort of get a bit mid-table-y. But as I was saying, it's at the top of when I was talking. I'm liking this unstructured approach, by the way, guys. You know, never send questions out again. You know, let's just let your guests ramble. Yeah, let's just chat. Let's let the fans ramble on. You know, because like I say, it has been an interesting season. There have been lots of excitement. You know, you don't get like 16, 15 shootouts most of the time, even if the table doesn't reflect it. So I don't have a. You know, you think about other clubs, like, you know, you think of like Bury, you know, who've gone out of business. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And Blackpool, they've had so many struggles, you know, financially. They spent money they didn't have, they got promoted, and, you know, so I don't necessarily begrudge the club trying to run it more like, you know, thinking of the financial side a bit much, even if sometimes it does get a little bit frustrating.
And we Norwich have been there, like and I think, like, you know, we talked about this in more detail on other pods, but I think we're similar in so much that I think our new owner will invest. We're certainly not, you know, destitute now, but I don't think there's going to be, and sorry again for Norwich fans that are listening to this, I don't think there's going to ever be like a spending spree. I think we're just going to be clever and keep a solid foundation at the club and keep it sort of ticking over. And I don't think that, you know, that's a recipe for staying in the Premier League. I certainly don't think. But, you know, this always comes up. It's a question of talking about what is the Premier League now and where does it go? Because it probably needs to change in order to make it more, make the football leagues more competitive, if that makes sense, because it's not really sustainable as it moves forward. I know this is a bit deep for us Sunday morning, but we're here now, so we may.
No, I like it. Yeah, no, yeah, because there's that question of like what's football for? Because I think that you're right, that is a bit deep, and the way sort of being a fan is, you know, changed over the decades, and it seems to be speeding up even more, where, you know, you do get that disparity between the Premier League. There's the top of the Premier League, there's in the middle, and those who are sort of maybe a bit yo-yoing. And I think how you enjoy it as a fan and your expectations possibly do, you know, change as those times have gone. You know, I mean, when the Premier League started, you know, Norwich were, they finished quite high, I think, in the first table. Third, yeah. And they beat Bayern in the UEFA Cup or something. I can't remember.
We've done this to death, haven't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So as Norwich fans, this is probably something you talk about a lot. As a Preston fan, it doesn't come up very much. So I'm just doing this off in my head. This is probably like tattooed actually on the back of the hand of metaphorically tattooed on the back of your hand.
Just tattooed on my arse cheek.
We were talking about tattoos as well the other day, funnily enough.
Were you?
Yeah.
What about them? I don't have any myself. Yeah.
No, me neither. But for me, I can't mention it a third time what my suggestion was, but I'll let Morgan explain his.
So for me, a Norwich sliding doors moment was when we bought Ricky Van Wolfswinkel under Chris Hughton, and everyone thought that we were this was it. This is the turning point. Norwich had arrived, and he scored on his debut and never scored again, except I think like 2 goals at Rotherham or a goal at Rotherham or something in the cup. But I decided that I wanted Ricky Van Wolfswinkel's face and Chris Hughton's face tattooed on my kneecaps.
Oh. Did you get that done?
I'm staving off. I've got other plans for those kneecaps. But maybe I'll get a Ricky. I was going to get Ricky Van Wolfswinkel on the back of my new Norwich shirt this season, just for the kicks. I think is it his 10-year anniversary last season, Jez?
Yeah, it would be
10 years.
He'll be getting on that way for sure. I think he's must be. I mean, 2015. Yeah, that wasn't it, when Chris Hughton was about? But I mean, bringing it back to Preston, Connor. I know we talked a little bit before we came on about, when you were knocking on the door at the Premier League, and just talk to us about that time, and also the influence that David Moyes had on the club.
So yeah, I mean, Moyes, he'll always be a club legend. He took them over, like I say, they were in, what would now be League Two. Took us, promoted as champions from both then and because it was the second division, and then to get it to the playoffs in, the first division playoffs was absolutely incredible achievement. And I think it's probably a bit. So this is probably me just showing my age now. So I'm 39. I'm even older. I'm between you two exactly. So we've got 38, 39, 40. So I think maybe younger fans who probably. We've been in the Championship now for 10 years. I think it's really easy for them to not appreciate. When I was growing up, and we were in what is now League Two, it was just fantastic to get that sense of excitement.
For sure.
If for those with keen ears, you may remember me saying that my parents are from Bolton, so I'm related to a lot of Bolton Wanderers fans. The game that got away was that playoff final loss to Bolton in Cardiff, which was not a close game. Let's just put it like that. And I don't know where it feels in retrospect, because it's one of those where it's just like to use a phrase that Morgan just used. It's a real sliding doors moment. What would have happened if that one game had gone differently? We've had other close run things. Funny enough, so when I mentioned Eastleigh and Fulham, and I was working in Chelsea Westminster Hospital, and at the time, part of the time I also went to uni in London. And I mentioned I was going to a Fulham game. This is when Bobby Zamora played for Fulham. I don't know if you guys remember. And, I mentioned that I was going to go see a Fulham game. I didn't mention I was a Preston fan, just mentioned I was going to go see a Fulham game when the Premiership. And the guy talked to me, he's like, that Bobby Zamora, he's some player, isn't he? And I was thinking, I'm a Preston fan. He scored a goal that beat us to the playoff final. I hate Bobby Zamora in many ways. But it was just because, that was the other time we made the final, and to Billy Davis, and there was that period where we, it felt like, we might get in the Premier League, and I don't know, like I say, look at other Lancastrian teams that have done it, like close rivals like Blackpool and Burnley, and you do get that euphoria of promotion, but you always wonder, how would that season have gone? I don't. Good a manager as Moyes was. If we're getting thrashed by Bolton in the playoff final, would we really have had much in the Premier League? You'll never know, but it's just something that you do think about sometimes. It's such a hard,
I mean, that's a sort of a lead-on question to what I want to ask. Like, realistically, what would your? I mean, my friend Ben, he's always very much like, he's always impressed by how humble Preston fans tend to be, but if you went up, and I think like Jez, you can interject here with regards to Luton. If you go up, what's obviously it's then challenging in the Premier League, but what happens should you get relegated? Is the expectation level then set really high? I mean, and then do the fans' personalities change?
I think they would, and I think, as I mentioned earlier when I was comparing Preston to Tottenham and the sort of business sustainability model that the now late Trevor Hemmings instilled on the club, I think that you probably would see a bit of a disconnect, because I don't think they would spend sort of frivolously or things like that. And I do think if they did go up somehow, like I said, it's not happening this season. I don't think that they would spend a lot. I think that they probably would be quite conservative. Any parachute payments, because they would get relegated if they did. We're talking very strange hypotheticals, because I can't imagine this current squad getting promoted in the first place. But if I imagine a squad like it, I don't see them surviving at Premier League level, just because it is so competitive these days. And you look at, the three teams that went up last year all look like they're potentially going to be relegated. Give or take a Wolves. No offence, Wolves fans who might be listening.
Oh, yes, offence. We hate Wolves.
We can't say that, Jez.
No.
I bear no ill. I don't. What was because obviously I didn't get the questions through, so I was thinking of things that might be. I don't know if people like who listen to these podcasts are like interested in weird sort of little bits of football.
Oh, they love it. They love it. That's why they tune in.
I've got two weird bits of football trivia. So if Preston were to get promoted to the Premier League, they would break a weird streak. They're the only team to have won the old First Division who's never played in the Premier League.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
That's a great pub quiz question.
Yeah.
Thinking about it logically, it probably makes the most sense because they won the first two and haven't won it since, so it's the furthest back First Division, old First Division wins in time at Preston. So if any team were going to have won it and not been, good sense, that would be that would make sense. But yeah, it's a good little pub quiz question. The other one is a connection between Wolves, Sheffield United, Preston, Portsmouth and Burnley. Any guesses what connects those clubs?
Founders.
Pork pies.
They're not all founders. Portsmouth are not a founder.
Read the clubs again.
It's Portsmouth, Sheffield United, Burnley, Wolves and Preston.
Pork pies.
It's nothing with pork pies. They're the only clubs to have won the top 4 divisions in English football. All 4 of them.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
A little fact for you.
Yeah. I mean, I want to go back to what you were talking about, the Lancashire kind of connection. I don't know if either of you have you seen that Netflix show, the English Game?
Not yet.
Oh no, I haven't. Oh, it's about the
it's about Burnley and how it's sort of a Blackburn rivalry and how it kind of came about, like football in the UK, and how it was played. Like initially it was like just bum rush the ball, which I think is a great tactic. I think we should have done that yesterday, Jez, like flying V. I want to see it against Preston, just a flying V, everyone just running, like all of the Norwich players just running after the ball to get it in the back of the net, because I can't be bothered with this like passing bullshit anymore.
Yeah, forget about controlling space. It's not about controlling space.
Bum rush the ball. But it's really good, and it's sort of really interesting to read, watch about the whole how it came about. And I find that it's the same with like this Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, the history of these clubs, these old clubs that have come about, and how it's sort of spread through the country. I just think it's really fascinating, and you've got a massive history like in that part of the world about how the game came about. So it's brilliant. It's I think well worth a watch, and we don't get paid for this, so Netflix, if you're listening, please. But if you can tell us,
throw a few quid. Yeah,
I need a job. Can you tell us a bit more about like the sort of history in that part of the world? Football. Because I think it's really interesting.
It is interesting. So, like, I think from Scotland, actually, funny enough.
Yeah, that's right. So you see that, and you see.
Yeah, so they were these players who were nominally on the books of Mill, but actually they just practiced football all day. They were professional footballers. There was nothing against it in the rules, I don't think, whether they thought to or not. It's just something that came about. The club, funnily enough, actually, like a lot of football clubs, they actually started out as a cricket team.
Yeah.
And they only played football in the cricket off-season to keep fit. And it's funny that it's sort of, it's weird to think that, hundreds of years, over 100 years later, that football used to be seen as sort of this extra sort of pastime, like I say, something just to keep fit, something to, and it's something about the game that sort of kicked off, really. I don't know if it's just because I think part of the appeal of football is that because it's quite a low scoring game, but it's also constantly tactically engrossing game. I think it just, as opposed to something like cricket where you literally win by a cricket score, because football is quite close and anyone can have their day, it just captured their imagination, and that's where the sort of fierce rivalries really grew up. It became more about the team and things like that, and it's absolutely fascinating about the history.
If you watch the English game, you sort of learn it's you see that it becomes a question of class, and there's there's like a classist kind of barrier that is kind of broken down in the end. But it was very much a case of those, I think, the North and South divide, and Southerners kind of having their like gentleman's club and sort of owning the politics of football, if you will. And then you see the sort of Lancashire teams kind of overcoming that. But obviously with a bit of like Hollywood glitz, I suppose, sprinkled on it. But I don't think that has changed all that much. If you think about the Premier League as an institution, and I'll get pelters for this, and Jez will probably tell me off after that. But like it's a massive industry, and it's a billionaire's playground, and I think it's really great to see clubs like Preston try to get into that, and like Luton, last season making a fist of things, because we all love the underdog, especially against the established institution that is the Premier League, because it is, I'm going to say this, it's a shit show. So there you go.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't know if apologies to any Arsenal fans or anyone else out there who might be offended by what I'm about to say. I was talking to a mate of mine, a guy I used to work with, who was a big Arsenal fan, and he said that he really hated Chelsea because when Roman Abramovich took over, that sort of changed football. It became like a billionaire's program. It became all about like the money, etc. And I really wanted to ask him, but I bit my tongue. Did he feel similarly about when the Premier League was founded? Because the whole point of that was to give money to the clubs at the top and to sort of keep the riffraff out a little bit. So what he really objects to is not the fact that someone changed the nature of the game to give, to keep the wealthy wealthy and the poor poor. He hates the fact that he was on the wrong side of it on the Abramovich equation.
I mean, we crashed the party in the inaugural Premier League, so we should have never finished third, and it is sort of, I don't know. It's a great league. It's a very entertaining league. It keeps me up at night. It doesn't really, but it keeps me sort of interested when I've got not much else to do other than these podcasts. But yeah, I think that it'd be great to see like a team like Preston go up again.
I think. Sorry to interrupt, Morgan. A couple of points whilst I've been listening to you two chat, and it's been fantastic, by the way. The Luton point, I think what promotion did for that town, it can't be understated. Obviously, Conor, you'll know that being local.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think what that did for that town, and what it's going to do in the future, i.e., pave the way for having the new stadium, or at least facilitate that. What it's doing to them now, currently today, is probably not so good, because they've kind of got, experienced that sort of losing streak, and that's kind of carried on into this season. I think they just need to stabilise again, which I think they will. Obviously, got a new manager now, but I think Morgan, you sort of alluded to the question earlier on what it means, and I think it meant I think it, for a community like Luton, it meant everything. Secondly, I think you mentioned about the Premier League. The Premier League, changing the face of football, and I think that's true to some extent. But I think the massive shot in the arm for English football was Euro '96.
Yeah.
I think Euro '96 massively changed football in England because of the perception of the England team, because of the type of people that were going to football kind of shifted. So yes, I think the Premier League does have a lot to answer for, I suppose, in that sense. I do think Euro '96 changed football in England for the better.
I mean, because England wasn't, like, for the younger listeners out there, England weren't at USA '94. They didn't make it, and Euro '96. Guess who I had in the sweepstakes at school as my team.
It's not Germany. It's got to be Germany or England. Which one was it?
It was Germany.
It was Germany.
I cried in that semi-final. Like, I cried, and it broke my heart.
How often in your head did you replay Gaz's foot nearly getting on that ball, nearly getting to that golden goal?
I still mention it to this day. I mean, it literally, we were having a conversation with someone that's been helping us out with our social media, I said that we had a chance yesterday that was quite similar. Josh Sargent, if he wore size 14 boots, would be winning that game yesterday. Because he would have got the end of it. But we all relived that moment, and that's Gascoigne, phenomenal talent. And would his life have been any different if he scored that? Maybe not. Maybe he's already going down that path. But I think it would have helped him if he had scored that, because it's golden goal then, isn't it? And we're in the final of a major competition against a team that we'd probably fancy beating, to be honest. I think
I just like to back you, but.
I like those kind of eccentric kind of talents. And bringing it back to Preston, do you think that have you got anyone? Because I remember Jordan Hugill played for you guys, right? And I is that right?
Yeah. I think the most. You're talking about eccentric talents in the Preston squad. I've already mentioned someone who bit someone together. I think Osmajic is probably he's our closest Gascoigne analogy from the current squad. He's a record signing. He has played pretty well when he's been playing, but also he's got a bit of a screw-loose. So that's probably also. Anyone just Google Brad Potts' car, and again, just there's some characters in that Preston squad. Let's put it that way.
But that's what I love about it. I love about it makes it more interesting, because I think that there's an element now in football where you're media trained, and it sort of like eliminates any personality you have. And we've just recently signed Wright from Man City, a DM, and he comes across just so well, like obviously just a really nice guy, but also talented and just down to earth. I mean, I think that, and I don't want to go on about the North and South divide in the UK, but I always find when I go north, people are a lot more welcoming and warmer. But I mean, you've lived in London, and you've obviously from the north. What's your sort of take on, I guess, like Preston fans and how they sort of how they are with rival clubs fans?
I think we're okay. I mean, like I said, the Forest derbies are the Lancashire derbies, but I think that I think they're a good set of fans overall. What you're saying about expectations, there is that, because I think Preston fans are just in it for the game. They just love watching a game on a Saturday afternoon. They don't have this wider sort of entitlement that some clubs can get, and I'm not going to name any, and also
Norwich.
Most fans of most clubs are absolutely lovely. I'll say this absolutely now. I think that most football's a good community, and that's one thing that's absolutely wonderful about the game. But I think that if you look at any given club, the way the most annoying parts of their fan base will act, the way that annoyance, the form that sort of annoying behaviour takes, does probably vary with the club's fortunes. So if you get teams that are like right on top, the fans do get a bit sort of arrogant and entitled. If you get teams that just expect to lose every week, the worst elements of their fan base. Most fans are absolutely fine. The worst elements of their fan base can get a little bit bitter and a little bit, a little bit mouthy in some other ways. I mean, I'm also a big rugby fan, and I think that there's a thing where some rugby supporters they look down on football fans a little bit, and I think a lot of that is unearned by football fans. I think that they do sometimes get a bad reputation, but most people, I think, it's a laugh. If you're in the stand, I've got two daughters, so I've not had a chance to see Preston live in some time, but people are generally quite friendly, and people do generally have that, and I think Preston fans are very much like I say, I think they are have a good chat to people, and I don't think there's too much of a. I mean, someone will probably if I was saying this in other contexts, someone would probably link me examples of Preston fans doing something nasty or whatever. But my impression of them, completely biased, is that I think they are a good lot. I think that they generally don't have any form of entitlement that some clubs can get. Again, most fans from most clubs absolutely fine, and I think that they are quite friendly. Are people friendlier up north? Probably a little bit. I think probably a little bit. I think that the country has a north, a Midlands, a South, and a London. I think that London's got kind of its own. I lived in London for 8-9 years, so I'm speaking this as very much an insider. But it's almost like the fifth country of the UK. You know, you've got England, you've got Scotland, you've got Wales, Northern Ireland, you've got London. It's actually got a bigger population than Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. So it's really got its own identity. People are a lot busier. Probably, don't give people the time of day as much as they might do certainly where I'm from in the Northwest. It's a very different sort of mindset. In fact, I had an old boss actually when I was back in. I was working in Blackburn actually. I was living in Preston, and so she lived in Blackburn. She'd moved up from Maidstone in Kent, and she said the most surreal moment of her life was when she got into a lift and it was just her and this other person lift, and they started a conversation with her. She's like, what on earth is this? She just moved up, and I'm like, yeah, that will happen to you up here. People will just chat. And,
they do that in Norfolk. Are you right, Bold?
Sure they do.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Having spent some time in Maidstone, I can understand why she feels that way.
That's not my feeling either. By the way, that's to the audience at home. I've not had the privilege of going there, but I'm sure it's probably nice.
It's lovely. Yeah, it's lovely. So I suppose the last sort of few questions really that we haven't set you, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Shared players. So I'm going to start with one that probably a lot of people wouldn't associate, I suppose. This player never actually played for Norwich, but he had a trial with us, supposedly. But he definitely played for Preston because he was on loan. David Beckham?
Yeah, he did play for Preston. I didn't know he had any kind of Norwich connection whatsoever. That absolutely amazes me.
Jez just made that up.
It's on Flown from the Nest.
It's the internet.
But no, so that's one. I think, we've already touched upon Jordan Hugill. Robbie Brady, I think, is currently playing for you, right?
Yes, that's correct, yeah. Declan Rudd.
Yes, Declan.
In fact, he was on loan before he signed for us permanently from Norwich. So, he was across both.
All best to Toledo.
Yeah. So there's been some connections between Preston and Norwich in terms of players. One thing that I was messaging Jez before this came out actually. So one thing I was quite looking forward to talking about on today's podcast was in the original sort of schedule, Preston was supposed to be playing Millwall yesterday, but we actually ended up playing Wickham because we beat Charlton and got through to the next round of the FA Cup. I was going to talk about Alex Neil because Alex Neil obviously managed Preston, and he managed Norwich as well. So we would have just played his team, and it would have been really exciting. But as it happens, we're playing them after you. I thought, obviously all managers come to an end. I thought he did a decent job as our coach. I think he's definitely someone who, I think when he was Norwich's manager, he was still in his 30s, but he looked at least a decade older, and I think that tells you a lot about management.
Absolutely, they're a football,
Yeah, exactly. I think it ages a man. Football management. I mean, you look at Moyes now. Like we talked about him a lot. Absolute Preston legend. Nothing wrong to say about him. But I think he's looked in his 60s since he was about 40. And it's a stressful job. And so yeah, I don't know what your guys' thoughts on Alex Neil. Like I say, I think he did all right as our manager, and I don't know how you feel as a Norwich fans against his time.
I feel you're right about the aging thing, because I feel like this podcast has aged me about. I've got more grey hair now than I had a month ago. So, but yes, football. Alex Neil.
Alex doesn't even have the hair to go grey, so that's just.
It's the bags. But I mean, I don't know. It to me, it's still a question that I speak to my friends about. Like if he was if he was just a head coach and he had a director of football, would he have done a better job at Norwich and not had to have all the stress? He was a very young man when he signed up to Norwich, and he came in and threw a bit of bluster off the back of Neil Adams' tenure, and got Norwich up through the playoffs. But arguably, you could say Norwich had a Premier League team in the Championship, and it was underperforming. He came in, made it perform. I think he lost his way Jez, it was at 6-2 against Newcastle. I think he you know, he
It
lost.
was, yeah, wasn't it? We were winning 3. What it was we were winning. This is, yeah. So that was the Premier League season, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
But for me, well, I'll let you carry on your story, but then I'll come back to mine when
I
you're
mean,
ready.
I think after Newcastle thrashed Norwich, you know, Alex Neil wavered. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I think he did a job. He did a good job. He provided us with one of the. I mean, it's been on many of our Norwich pods about Wembley, and so you can't take that away from the guy. But afterwards, his career trajectory afterwards, you know, I don't know. I think he's good enough. He's a good enough manager in the Championship, and I think he's got talent, you know. But yeah,
for me, Conor, I completely echoed Morgan's thoughts on that. He gave probably me and a lot of other Norwich fans the best supporting day that we've ever had at Wembley, and the subsequent subsequent's the wrong word. The game before against Ipswich at Carrow Road, where we, you know, it was the semi-final of a playoff. I think that could have, you know, it's one of those, isn't it? If you lose to your local rivals in a playoff semi, it could go.
that's awful. Yeah,
it could be awful. Luckily for us, it wasn't. But the turning, what I was alluding to earlier about the Newcastle game, was when we come back to the Championship under Neil. We started that season quite well, and the turning point for me was we were 3-2 up at St James's Park in the, like, maybe the 88th minute or something like that. Ended up losing that game 4-3. And I just got the sense, and you know, this is not coming from any sort of standpoint where I've got, you know, an insight in what goes on in the dressing room. It's just my personal opinion that he lost the dressing room that night. So yeah. I think he probably went in there and understandably was quite upset. But we had some very experienced professional footballers there, like the likes of Russell Martin, Cameron Jerome, I think, was still there at the time. Yeah. And I think that they probably turned on him a little bit because the form thereafter just wasn't there.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's quite. I mean, obviously, without knowing how, you know, in the dressing room, but I think he's quite I'd say he's quite a Marmite figure. He was always very much blood and thunder. I think he's a very passionate man. You can tell.
Yeah.
But with that comes, you know, a level of divisiveness, and I think, you know, some players react well to that. It's like any workplace, isn't it? If you've got a manager who's a bit of a ball buster, but then you've got a Daniel Farker-esque kind of like arm around the shoulder kind of manager, who do you want to work for? And I think that, yeah, Jez, I mean, that's nailed on. I think you've spot on with that.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Colin.
To that, I don't think it's an accident that his tenure at Preston ended. It was during one of the COVID lockdowns, so it was sort of 2021. I think Alex Neil is probably one of the worst managers to work for under sort of COVID restrictions, when you don't have fans to sort of cheer you on. You're on top of each other all the time. I think that was probably part of what did for him. Like, you know, it was March 21 he went, and, you know, the players, you know, they hadn't, like I said, they hadn't seen fans. They were just, you're living in a bubble. You're you can't go, like, there's no stress releases in that time. I mean, it was his tenure, the end of his tenure, because it was during those pandemic years. I think we all blanked out a lot of what happened in that time, just generally in our lives. Yeah. And I think that you're right to talk about his personal style. You're very right to talk about how, when things aren't going your way, he's probably not the manager. Yeah. He wasn't the manager to get you through those hard times. And I think just, you know, I think it was compounded by just the circumstances we all kind of find ourselves in. It just, he's probably not the kind of guy that you want. I mean, like I said, I talked about the stress age game. I did make a bit of a joke about it. I think he takes a lot of that on himself, though. The person Alex Neil is hardest on isn't so much the players, though he is hard on them. I think he's hardest on himself. I think he's one of those. I can't say that I've got huge insight to his psyche, but he definitely always seems like someone who
takes it personally.
He takes it personally. I think there's some managers who who was it was asked, how are you sleeping? Was it Pep Guardiola talking about sleep? Alex Neil does not sleep when he's on a losing run. I can almost guarantee that he does. I don't know if he sleeps when he's on a winning run. It's just something that he seems like the kind of guy who dreams about football. Constantly.
Our new manager, he looked about. He came in, and now he's got bags under his eyes that I could probably sleep in front of his kid.
I love it. Heckingbottom, actually, I think he's someone who he's probably better at dealing with it than most.
Another ex-Norwich man, by the way.
Another ex-Norwich man, yeah. I think he, he's been through it all. He's one of these plain-speaking blokes. That's probably how I'd describe Heckingbottom. I think he probably maybe deals with the stress a bit better than some others, but again, just speculating on people. I think with Neil, you could definitely say 100%. He's a guy who gets stressed. Good job that he's a nice, chilled-out club like Millwall. That's all I can say.
Good fit. I think I said to the guys, we had some. I had a Millwall fan on, John, a couple of months ago, and. It was just before Neil got appointed, and the room, it was strong room as he was going to be, and I just said I think it's a really good fit for you, because I think it's that sort of club. You're right that and I don't mean any disrespect to the fans here, but it's that sort of like strong sort of like do you know what I'm trying to get at here? Probably. But I think it's, I just think it's a really perfect fit, and he's at the moment he's proven that, because they're playing really well. I mean, they win 4-1 yesterday, was it, or something? They beat Leeds, didn't they? Or was it 2-0? They beat Leeds in the FA Cup, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting really to see. I think we should move on to maybe just talk about the game on Tuesday evening. There's some debate as to when this podcast is going to go out, Morgan, as to whether it's going to be tonight, Sunday, or I'm going to put it actually out on Tuesday. So delete is applicable, but the game on Tuesday or the game tonight, let's see how that one lands.
The game on the 11th of February, 2025.
Yeah, that's it.
You're more prepared than we are.
Yeah, exactly. But no, so Conor, what do you think? I mean, I know you went 120 minutes on Saturday, didn't you?
We did, yeah.
So do you think that's going to affect the?
I think there will be some fatigue. They've got to travel to Norwich. I mean, last time we played as well, like Preston were 2-0 up, they looked pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Threw away the lead. I know there's a Neil Gallagher quote where he's talking about. He's actually talking about his career, but he's saying that when you throw away a lead like that, it feels like you've lost. And I think that the players, if they are casting their minds back, will probably feel like they lost that game at Deepdale.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's Norwich's night. Norwich will be frustrated and kicking themselves after giving away. They probably should have won yesterday. Let's be honest again. Sorry, I shouldn't say yesterday. They probably should have won on the 8th of February.
Very professional, Conor. Very professional.
So they probably should have beaten Derby. I think the hope's very good taken probably. It will be like the team. I think that we'll be looking for a reaction. There is looking for a reaction. I think it's 2-1. Probably 2-1.
Yeah, definitely.
We've lost you a little bit, Conor.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay, so if it was a bit garbled, then just dub over whatever the actual scoreline was, and I'll look like a genius. So I said 2-1 to Norwich is what I predicted.
I'm still feeling sad from the 8th. Is it the 8th, Conor? The 8th of February.
Yeah.
No, I'm not really. I was annoyed because I sat right in front of or the side view of the what happened, and the character, we'll call him a character, who walked into Jack Stacey's boot to get the pen, then celebrated directly in front of me, and I sat there. Everyone was obviously throwing abuse at him, but I just sat there and I was glowered. I was just like, okay. And then after that, Jez was like, "You okay?" And I'm like, No, because it's the 90th minute, and I didn't really want to have an equaliser. It sort of tore my my storybook up. So I think Preston will probably try and do the same thing: pack out the midfield, park the bus, try to annoy Norwich, and I don't know. For me, it's probably got a bit of a draw about it. Smacks of a bit of a draw. Maybe again, maybe 2-2, 1-1, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll go draw. Yeah, I think it'd be a draw as well, based on exactly what you said, Morgan. It's just grueling, isn't it? Like when yesterday we should have seen the game out. I think did he make the wrong substitutions? Probably. I think it wasn't the time to bring Jacob Wright into the game. If we were 2 or 3-0 up, then yeah. But I think you just bring on why did he bring on Cordoba?
Yeah,
just see it out.
Yeah.
But I think going back to Tuesday night, I think tonight. I think a draw. A draw will be I'll take a draw now. I know it sounds defeatist, but I'd actually take a draw now.
Yeah, we're sort of tickling the playoffs, and that's good enough. That's good enough for my overall season prediction, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Morgan.
Close enough now, though, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Conor, say that again.
You're close enough, and the closest. Yeah, you can take Blackburn. You're only 2 points behind them. Please do it for the Preston fans. No offense.
Lose at Carrow Road, and we will.
Let's not go too far. Morgan.
Send a memo to Preston, please.
Right. Okay, Morgan. Morgan.
What is it?
Random question of the week.
Can I give you a random fact of the week?
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, go on.
So this ties together lots of themes of the podcast so far. So it ties together, players, not talk about particularly Norwich players, it ties together the fact that we're all getting old, we're getting older. One of the, oh my god, I'm getting old now moments for me was, thinking of players who were integral to Norwich's last promotion season. You guys know Oliver Skipp, yeah? Who's on from Tottenham. So my wife is a primary school teacher, and she saw his name on the team sheet. Goes, I used to teach him.
Wow.
Yeah. She taught him year 6 geography. I'm like, oh my god, I'm now at the stage where established professional footballers were taught by my primary school teacher wife.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I have no ins in football whatsoever. I'm reliant on Jez to get me.
I wouldn't say that was an in, but that was I just like to say it was just oh my god, time goes by, doesn't it? Time goes by.
Thanks for reminding me about my imminent death.
I don't think you're imminently going to die, but
I hope not.
I'm giving up only 1 year behind you. I really hope not.
Well, he's the only one that's carrying this podcast at the moment, so if he goes, then I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. Morgan, come on, you must have thought of this random question by now.
Oh, I have not. It's the random question of the week. I'm getting better at that every week, every podcast. My voice carries on. Okay, so, well, it's going to be a history. It's going to be a history question because I've recently gotten into understanding about the War of the Roses. So, what is your favourite Lancastrian stronghold in your part of the world?
So, it's quite funny. So if you're into your War of the Roses,
oh my god,
it's relevant because of Preston was in Lancashire, obviously the Red Rose against the White Rose of Yorkshire. So
yeah. Do you want me to ruin it a little bit for you?
Go on.
So during the actual War of the Roses, though it was the House of Lancaster versus the House of York, a lot of the forces were drawn from other places. So Henry VII, who was Henry Tudor, most of his forces were actually from South Wales, where he
that's right.
grew up. And actually, modern day Lancashire, most of it, that's what they were contributing forces to the House of York at the time. So actually, most of Lancashire was actually sending troops to the House of York instead. So it's not something that there's there's a weird connection between sort of the pride that Lancashire won the war, I guess, but also the House of Lancaster won the war. But in terms of actual strongholds, I think they were probably more of they were actually fighting for the House of York rather than the House of Lancaster.
Well, look at that. I keep bringing this up, but my granddad was from Merthyr Tydfil in South Wales, so there you go.
And actually, he fought under a red dragon, and it was a white boar that
Richard III. Yeah.
Rather than I mean, the roses are symbols of the respective counties, but their actual banners were a boar and a dragon. But yeah.
Fantastic.
There we go.
So whoever's listening to this, it's like a history lesson.
It is.
I love it.
No, that's absolutely superb. Jens, thank you so much. Conor, but obviously thank you for coming on. I know we organised this ages ago, but I have to admit, as I said, it was a little bit. How shall I say this? Flash in the pan today, with no question. So I think it worked quite well actually. It was quite nice to have that sort of organic chat, wasn't it? So
yeah, no, I had a really good chat with you guys. It was really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, 100%. So just for everyone else listening, you can follow us on all of our social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can now listen to the show on YouTube, the wonderful platform of YouTube. So I've been Jez Davies.
I've been Dale Gordon.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Barclay. Thanks so much for listening. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. You can also catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you've got any questions, stories, or topics you'd like me to cover, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, on the Ball City.